Greetings and welcome to a quick review of the two new weapons added to Killing Floor 2 with the Krampus Christmas update, the UMP 45 and the Freezethrower for the SWAT and Survivalist respectively. One of the more exotic weapons in Killing Floor thus far, the Freezethrower is Survivalist's first and only weapon dedicated to the perk, giving it at least some degree of personality. It functions in a similar manner to the microwave gun, although completely opposite in principle, opting to instead freeze targets rather than agitate them. Like the microwave gun, it can fire in two modes, firing a continual frozen beam of ice at a maximum distance of 11 meters normally, and its alternative fire mode functions like a shotgun, consuming 10 ammo and firing 7 snowballs in a relatively tight spread. This is good for dealing a lot of quick burst damage. Unlike the flamethrower, it does not deal damage over time, however can create ground ice which will have a similar effect to ground fire, albeit not inducing panic. The ice beam will deal 10 damage per hit by default and have a splash damage that deals 5, decreasing at a linear rate to 0 at the edge of this radius, making it capable of dealing with tightly packed groups of enemies, particularly clots and crawlers. Bear in mind that the ice beam and alt fire are capable of freezing enemies like the sharpshooter's cryo grenades. Taking advantage of ground ice and freezing will be critical to the success of this weapon, not only slowing the advance of your enemies, but dealing a fair amount of damage in the process. Remember, the alt fire can be very useful for picking out medium strength enemies like bloats and sirens, and at the very least freezing them in their tracks. The UMP on the other hand feels like a much more traditional weapon, although does enhance the diversity of weapons the SWAT has. The UMP has the highest per shot damage out of the entire SWAT perk, dealing 45 damage by default, above the Vector's 33 damage. It even rivals the Commando's weapons, dealing 5 more damage than the AK-12, although the introduction of hollow points negates this to a large extent. Like the AK, however, it does have the ability to fire in a 3-round burst, although confers no fire rate advantage. In fact, the UMP has the slowest fire rate out of all the SMGs at just 600 rounds per minute. However, it is still only beaten by the Chris SMG in damage per second. The UMP is a weapon of restraint and control, and is by far more ammo efficient than any other SMG, especially against medium strength enemies like most tier 3 weapons are. It also is generally easier to control thanks in part to its lower recoil and slower rate of fire, and will actually have a smaller recoil multiplier when fired from the hip compared to other SMGs. For the SWAT perk, this weapon definitely seems to shine as a go-to weapon for the mid-rounds, and as an effective trash cleaner on the higher waves when the Chris becomes viable. Keep in mind that it is tied for the second smallest magazine in the SWAT perk, next to the MP7, and all SMGs benefit from a quicker reload when tactically reloading. Thank you very much for watching. I will be covering both weapons again in their respective perk guides, but until then, happy hunting.